Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nate. If this is your first time with us, glad to have you here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 10 questions that new YNABers have when they're using the program. Now, I didn't make up this list necessarily myself. It was an article that was published by YNAB themself. So I'm just going to kind of take you through that article and kind of give you my 2 cents about it. Kind of talk about maybe some experiences I've had with that as well. So I know it can be scary getting started with YNAB, but there's a lot to go through with it, but definitely let's go through these together and make sure that stay through to the end so that you get all of these questions and you can kind of know if you're not started with YNAB, hey, how you can get started today. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that they talk about here is how do I start? Now in this article, they give you a bunch of different options between watching videos, to going through one of their kind of boot camps you can start out with, to really, you can even talk about even just talking to a real person, with one of their workshops. I would say for me, the best one to really start with is probably watching the YouTube videos. Watch some of the YNAB specific videos. Obviously you're watching this video, so it can help you. Nick True, I give a shout out to him. He's kind of the, top YouTuber when it comes to making videos about YNAB. I've definitely, subscribed to him and, like I said, watched all of his stuff. So kind of watching some YouTube videos kind of gives you some good hands-on experience and definitely gives you some different perspectives like I'm trying to give you here. The other thing is really just, you need to start. Sometimes we say, how do we start? Well, there's a lot of different formats on how you can start, but really just starting really is just going to help you, kind of get through that initial gate. Okay, we're going to just go on down here to number 2 here. It talks about how do I enter my income? Well, and it talks right away. I like how they put it right here. YNAB doesn't use forecasting. So if you're used to using any type of budgeting other software out there, or if you're used to just kind of maybe budgeting on paper or an Excel spreadsheet, a lot of times we like to use what's called forecasting. And we want to really look at the beginning of the month and we want to say, hey, I'm going to make this amount of money and I'm going to kind of budget it out for the entire month. Well, one of the reasons I chose YNAB was because of this, right here is you enter your income like when you have it. So if you're ready to start YNAB today and you only have $5 in your account, that's what you're going to budget today, is that $5. Now you may be getting paid tomorrow, or you may be getting paid in 2 weeks, and you may have an idea of what it's going to be. But until the money is in the bank and you have it to be able to use it, you don't budget it. So definitely make sure that you are only budgeting what you have. Now you may have some ideas. You can plan for, some true expenses, and there's a bunch of, there's 4 different rules YNAB uses. One of them is using true expenses, and I actually have a video that talks about using true expenses that I'll link up here. But in general, you're not going to you may plan, but you're not going to budget actual dollar amounts until it is in the bank. Okay, number 3 here going down. Do I have to wait to pay for Payday to start my budget? Now, we kind of just hinted to a little bit this here, and that is, while you only are going to budget dollar amounts and move them around in your actual budget, the day, when you get paid, you definitely can and should be setting some type of goals, either in YNAB or just kind of on a piece of paper, something that kind of shows that you're working towards something. And you kind of know, now some things are immediate obligations, so that, let's say, rent. It's going to be $1,000 a month on the 1st every single month. So yes, you can plan ahead and know that I'm going to have to save, $500 from each paycheck if you get paid twice a month, or, $250 from each paycheck if you get paid weekly. Whatever it may be, you can plan ahead. But you want to be careful not to start moving dollar amounts around and start entering stuff that's not actually in one of your accounts. Okay, so when it comes to a new month in YNAB, it can kind of be a little bit confusing. And most of us start YNAB in the middle of the month, and you've dropped in, and you say you have $500 in your account, you budgeted that properly, you went prioritize it, and then maybe even to the next paycheck, and then all of a sudden, the new month's turned over, and all of a sudden things start to look a little weird. So 2 things to remember. 1, YNAB is going to automatically deduct from your to-be budget amount. So if you have something that's turned red, that's been overspent on, if you haven't moved money around somewhere else, it's going to automatically take it from that to-be budget. And the reason they do that, right, is because when you're going to budget new money, you need to make sure that all of your other things are taken care of. If not, then you're going to basically be just running, and it's not going to be a true reflection of a snapshot of what your actual your budget looks like and what your actual financial health looks like. So they're going to automatically take that, if you overspend on a restaurant, let's say by $100, right? They're going to automatically take that out of your to be budgeted amount to kind of take care of that up front. Now, the way to avoid that obviously is if you do start to go over a certain amount on the previous months, make sure that before you click over to the new month, you kind of move money around to cover that if you don't want it to come out of the to be budgeted amount. Now, when it comes to credit cards, and I'll do a future video that kind of talks all about, credit cards and YNAB because they are a little wonky. You need to make sure, and they talk about right here, it's going to turn orange and the amount that you overspent will be added to your credit card balance. So you'll see in YNAB, there'll be a credit card balance and you basically need to pay into that. Because when you put anything on credit, even if you pay it off, they're seeing it as debt until it's paid off. Even if you pay it off before you get any interest, it's still debt until money in your actual bank account has paid off that credit card. So if you need to get that paid down, if it goes over the month, then you're actually going to pay into that credit card. Now, you may not be behind on your credit card. You may not be paying any interest on your credit card. But as YNAB sees it, you've clicked over to the new month. So you need to pay into that credit card amount in order to, basically avoid carrying debt forward. Okay, moving on here. They talk about, why doesn't my budget match my bank balance. Now this one usually is something that just comes down to reconciling. So make sure that whenever you have a new budget that you're going through and you're reconciling your budget before you kind of start. So if you look in your bank account and there's $600 is the example they use, and YNAB says $500. Well, somewhere in there's a $100 transaction that's off. So if you do that at the beginning, then usually it's a lot easier to identify before you start laying out the budget for your paycheck, right? So when you log in, just kind of do a quick check on those and make sure you reconcile those as needed. Okay, so direct import. So direct import, right? So that is basically either you can enter manually transactions into YNAB or you can have them directly imported. Now there's kind of two camps on this. I've kind of honestly been in both. I did a lot of direct importing, probably early on. Now I prefer actually manual entry, even though usually it's reverse where a lot of manual entry up front and then you kind of fall in direct importing. At times I do both. But knowing direct importing that there's going to be a delay, so make sure that you account for that. And usually the best method if you're going to direct import is try to do more manual entry still, like I said, kind of a hybrid approach, and then that way those direct imports kind of act as more of just a layover, and they kind of, if they match, then you just approve them, and if there's an issue, you can easily identify it. Now, YNAB, I had USAA as one of my banks, and there was a big issue early on last year with kind of the new security features with some of these banks. So definitely make sure that they usually have a good guide on if you have an issue with that, and contact YNAB for that. But because of banks trying to be more secure, which is obviously a good thing, there is sometimes an issue with the software and it kind of messing with either you getting signed out of your direct import or there being just kind of an error and not importing all the transactions. That's happened as well. So definitely make sure you're keeping up on that, and whether you're direct importing or entering strictly manually, kind of just know that roughly what you're spending, and therefore you should hopefully catch it if there is an issue. So yeah, so we talked a little bit about this already with the YNAB credit card category, and like I said, I'll do an entire video walking you through each part of it and how to understand it. But really just talking about here, they just want you to know that pretty much like we said, if you budgeted for something, you need to make sure that you have money in that budget category. And as soon as you don't, and you've kind of spent money with a credit card account that you've linked, then it's going to come up, like I said, as debt until it gets paid off by your bank account or some other method, right? So definitely make sure that you pay into the credit card payments to pay it back if needed. Refunds, right? So kind of talking about this, and like I said, this will definitely go into the other video. So how do I categorize a refund? Right, so right here, I like the two scenarios they break down here. Charge $100 for clothing on December 5th. And then right here it says $100 added to your clothing category and $100 removed from your credit card payment, it's done, right? So that's basically saying you had the money in there to begin with, and therefore when you refund it back, say you turned it in and you got a refund, you just put it right back in there and it's kind of done and it's back to where it was. Okay, so kind of continuing on here with scenario 2, basically it's a good thing to look at it whenever you have it categorized and you don't put it back in the same category, that can cause problems. And basically it's going to show that there's just an unaccounted for $100 that's sitting there, in your credit card account. So the most easiest thing to do is definitely just always credit back to whatever it went back to. So if it is, $100 in clothing, go back to clothing. And then if you decide that you do no longer need that in there, then go ahead and move it over to a different category. That's the most easiest and most straightforward method to use. And then, what about my savings, right? So sometimes it's hard for people to grasp, and it was really hard for me to grasp up front, that everything that you do, rule 1 here, and I did a video all about rule 1 actually, and I'll link down in the description below, but everything has to have a job. Now, whether that job is to go get you a nice ice cream cone because, it's hot outside, or it's, hey, I'm going to save money into my savings account. That is giving it a job as well. So make sure that you budget, you put your, if you have multiple savings accounts that you have already set up, then put those in your budget. That way you can show that, I'm putting $100 into my savings, and that will kind of take into account when you go to budget, it'll move it to savings. And once again, that's money that's accounted for. Even if it's just going to go sit there and sit for an emergency that hopefully never comes, it's still something that you need to give that dollar a job, and that is that job for that dollar. Okay, and finally, talking about what is age of money, right? So this is kind of a concept that most, I didn't really know a whole lot about when I first started with YNAB many years ago. But basically, it's a way that the whole point of YNAB is you're one day going to get to the point that you are paying, with last month's money. And so basically YNAB shows you that, when you have transactions, and the older those transactions are, basically it's showing you that you're using money that's older and older, right? So eventually, when you hit that about 30-day mark, your money is now been aged, and you're paying with money that was 30 days old. You're paying for an expense now with 30-day-old money. And so the money that you have in there today that you're putting in, obviously you're going to pay for something down the road. And once you hit that, you're kind of in a good spot. Now it does keep going, and that is something to consider on, hey, are you investing your money? Should it be putting it somewhere else? And when you have it in savings, guess what? It's going to affect that as well, because you're obviously continuing to do that. But that's kind of the way that the age of money works. And so really you want to be watching that and get at least to that point, shoot for that 30 days. It's going to take you a little while to get there. But the more you do that, then you'll look down your bank account. One, you're going to have a bucket of money in there. And that also is kind of the way that you can know that you're really doing this system and it's really working, which is rule number 4, age of money. All right, thanks guys for joining me for this. I know it's a little bit long-winded. I just kind of wanted to go through all of these. So I'll link this article down in the description below so you can go check it out and read it yourself. If you got value out of this, please hit the like button and share this with somebody and let them know all about the YNAB system. Once again, hit the subscribe button. And if you are looking for more, kind of to talk more about those rules, I'll link that over here in the end card right here. So go check that out, and we'll see you in the next video.